So a lot of us use plants as a way to add beauty and decor and just a vibe to our home, but sometimes getting to that point or creating that idea that we have in our head can be a little bit difficult. So I'm going to share with you my plant shelf and how I have styled it to hopefully give you guys some ideas, because even though it's mid-January, spring is going to be just around the corner, and that is a time where a lot of us like to refresh and change up the style of our home. So let me show you what I have done. So I do have several types of plant shelves or stands around my home and my room mostly, but I decided to feature this one because I feel like this one sometimes is the hardest one to kind of work with. The stands can be a little bit easier because they're open and you usually can put it near a window and it's fine. But these type of furniture type shelves can be a little bit difficult because you kind of have to set it up right for it to be good for plants, because it's not actually made for plants. So my home or my apartment is a very modern industrial style with concrete floors and exposed ceilings. So it has kind of like that minimalistic, modern, yet industrial style. There's a lot of metal and black in my apartment. So that's why I chose a shelf like this that is black and metal, and also has the glass shelving. And so this is a pretty tall shelf, but what drew me to this shelf is the shelves that they're not just your regular horizontal shelf. I like to have a little dimension and shape, and then of course having this great clearance makes it perfect for your larger plants. So I actually found this at Home Depot, or on Home Depot's website online, and it was about $202, and I think with shipping it came to about $218. So it ended up working out really well. I just had to add a couple of things like lights and it was good to go. So I probably will have up on the screen to show you guys how I have some lights on the top shelf, and then on the the second or third shelf here. So because it's glass, it does allow me to play with the light, and so I'll talk more about that. So of course I will have the link to this exact shelf in the description box, but definitely scroll through on Home Depot because there are several beautiful shelves. So this brings me to my first point when looking for the right shelf for you, is once you have the style in mind of whether you want a metal shelf or a wooden shelf or something with glass or tall or short, I would recommend just doing a broad Google search for that type of shelf, because I spent a lot of time looking on Wayfair or Amazon or these specific websites when really I had no idea that Home Depot actually had exactly what I was looking for. So when you put the search just straight into Google, it's going to show you every website that has a shelf of that description, and so you might be opened to other options that you didn't know was an option before. So picking out the style of your shelf is definitely the first and almost most important step, but I can't really speak too much on that for you personally because that's something you have to decide. It's based on your personal taste and the environment that your plant shelf is going to be in. So there's the bohemian, the chic, the modern, the mid-century. There's all these different types of styles of shelves. And sometimes that could be a little overwhelming too, to figure out what style you like. For me, I just went with the style that was already in my room, and that just kind of helped me from there. So once you have determined the style of the shelf that you want, the next pretty much most important thing is the way the shelf is made. So like mine's here, I said they have glass shelves, and I prefer and I recommend a shelf with glass shelves just because it gives you more versatility on the plants that you can put in on the shelf and the lighting. I feel like I don't need as much lighting on this shelf because I have the glass, right? So if I have this light here up top, even though there's no light here, because it's glass, the light will pass through. And it's perfect for if you have plants that you have darker leaves that you want them to stay darker, but they still need that bright but indirect light. The plants above will shade it and give it that perfect indirect light. So that's why I like glass shelves for these types that are enclosed like this, versus, you know, if you have a plant stand where it's just kind of open and it has those different tiers, you don't really have to worry about that. Now, if you do prefer like the wooden shelves or the solid ones where there's no glass, it may be wood or metal, whatever material it may be, or there's even those ones that's kind of has the grate. The metal grate would be similar to the glass where it would allow light to pass through. But if that's not your vibe and you just like a simple wooden shelf, then, or a solid shelf, I should say, that would block light, then you might want to just consider specifically where you're placing the shelf in your room, because it might need to be closer to the window, or you just may have to do a little bit more retrofit retrofitting with lighting, which is not hard. It just may cost you more in buying lights. So basically, once you know those two first things, the style of the shelf and the material, like what you want it to be made of, now you can really start to search for the type of shelf you're looking for. After you figure that out, now you can look at all the different types of shelves with the different shapes that they have. And for me, the next biggest thing I look at is the clearance of the shelves. How much space is between each shelf? So I might have mentioned earlier, I like this interest of having these different level shelves here. It gives you a different look. So for me, and it gave me this extra amount of clearance here, and then there's one behind me as well that's the same. So I personally recommend that because plants grow. They're not gonna stay the same size, hopefully. And so me particularly, some people really do love to switch their plants around all the time. I don't prefer to switch my plants around all the time. So when I put them somewhere, I want them to have enough room to grow for the next few months to a year. So that's why I really liked how much clearance was here on this shelf. So you really may need to get you a measuring tape out, or your phone, the measuring app on your phone, and see what plants you're thinking about putting on a shelf, because sometimes, right, like you definitely want to pay attention to what the dimensions are when you're ordering it, right? But then sometimes it'll say that there is 24 inches of clearance on the shelf, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's about 2 feet. What does that look like? Like, what plant can fit there? So since I couldn't really picture it in my head, so I had to get my plant, look at it. I didn't measure the plant, but just having a more clear idea. If you need to measure your plant, just to make sure you're gonna have the space that you want to have on your shelf for your plants. Along with having enough space for the plants that you put on the shelf, another factor is the lighting. When you put the lighting on the shelf, if you don't have much clearance, you might end up with your leaves right up against the light. Now, depending on the strength of your light, that may not be a big deal. Depending on the plant, like if it's a Hoya, again, it might not be a big deal because it might just help your plants to sun stress. For me, my top light up here, I'm not sure if it's in the frame or not. If it's not, I'll put it up on the screen. That's a pretty strong light that I have up there, and so it does sun stress my Hoya, so that's how I know it's pretty strong. And so I don't really put like any philodendrons or anthuriums up there, but because it's pretty strong and I have this glass shelves here, I can put my darker or velvety leaf ones down a level and it'll still get a really good amount of light without bleaching them. So now you have your shelf, you've picked out your style, you got the shelf, you know exactly where you want to put it in your home. Now's the fun part of getting the plants on the shelf. So this part is definitely a process, and it's going to take some trial and error of moving the plants around and seeing if they like the space. Thankfully, the plants, because they are alive, they will be responsive to where you put them on the shelf by either turning towards the light, and then you can kind of know like, okay, this plant will do better here because it's reaching for the light, or it's turning down, it's getting too much light. And so that's going to be something that takes a few weeks to months to figure out. But what I typically try to do is usually fill the space that is there. Unless you really prefer like a minimalist, like really plain, simple style, then maybe this you might feel is too full or too cluttered. But I would still recommend, like if you just had this crystallinum here and took this out, it's still tall enough to kind of fill this space visually rather than having a small Hoya here. So yeah, I definitely recommend, trying to put the appropriate size plant in the space. Then your smaller spaces, put your smaller plants, and usually that will be pretty aesthetically pleasing. I know my shelf right now, this is my real life how I have it set up, so it's not as aesthetically pleasing because I have this tray up here with a bunch of propagations, but I can show you. Less plants so that it's less cluttered. So because I do like to display my plants as decorations or decor in my home, this is a major reason why I put propagations in a nice vessel and not just in a plastic cup or anything. Don't be surprised if you see a Wendy's cup up there with a plant in it, because every so often it just happens. But generally speaking, I like to put it in a nice vessel because it is going to be displayed in my home and I want it to look nice. So that's why I still, even if it's just a water prop or something like that, I'll put it in a nice glass vase. So what I think I'm actually going to do is share with you guys, like do a little a shelf tour, just because I looked back at like my houseplant tour and my shelf looked completely different. I didn't even realize realize how much it had changed. So I'm gonna share with you guys now a little close-up tour of what is on this shelf. So up top, like here, as promised, there is a Wendy's cup with my calathea in it. It was just a cutting from this plant here, which is a rehab, but it's doing okay. And then over here, I have my pasta. He's been growing so, oh no, this is a part of the summer's glory. This is the pasta. Oh, he's putting on a leaf. Hi. I actually grew this from a chunk, so it's doing really well. And then next to that is my summer glory that I got from Lex, from Plant Life Lex. Peep this leaf. It actually really did serve its like beautiful bronzy leaf. If I have a picture, I'll insert it. It's looking more green right here, but I'm telling you, it gives bronze. Oh, it's putting on another leaf too. Very nice. And my Veitchii back there looking sad, which is why he's in the back. Next row down, this shelf has become my Hoya shelf. As you can see, there are tons of Hoyas. I just got this, what's this, linearis? I really like this guy. Some of it is rooted plant, some of it is cuttings, but there are some new roots in there, which is really exciting. My rehab of a Diffamachia Camille. I have these rehabs up here because, as I mentioned earlier, this light is super bright. This is from Amazon, so it's a great place for propagations. I ended up getting another, did I buy this? I think I bought something else from someone and she threw in this Rosita, which was perfect because I already had this one. And you guys were so nice when I was had my other video about my Hoyas having not growing and everything, my slow Hoyas. You guys were saying, oh, check for mice, which I did end up checking for, and thankfully I didn't have any, but I moved them here under this really bright light, and look, they are growing, and a nasty little fungus gnat back there. But yeah, this one that hasn't done anything for a long time is growing. And y'all, remember this? So remember when I had to chop my Walliana because it rotted? How can I show y'all this without making a mess? Let's see. This one, I remember I was like, oh, do you think I have enough for it to root? Because I literally had to chop the whole stem. I don't want to pull it out, but I want to pull it out and show y'all. Can y'all see? There's roots down in there. It rooted from nothing. There was like no stem left and it rooted. Oh my goodness. So hasn't put out new leaves yet, but it's alive and it has rooted. And then my, what's this, the Crimson Princess here. Only the green side is growing for whatever reason, but it's there. And my Bertonier, let me turn it so y'all can really get the full effect. Look at how cute and bushy that is. My Bertonier, my Obovata splash. It did get pretty bleached because I have it on this shelf, and I guess this plant doesn't really sun stress, but I put it here because it was having a hard time rooting. So it does finally have some new roots that you can see down in there. So I just sacrificed some nice dark leaves to get some roots, but it's okay. Next to that is my Polynora looking pretty sad. So I chopped it. I think I shared it with you guys when I chopped it, I'm not sure. And I had originally planted it all in here together and it wasn't doing that well, so I put it into perlite. So these are now rooting, but they were already starting to yellow by the time that I took it out. So I caught it just in time and it's okay. Over here is some more Hoyas, my Crash Splash, which I really love. Crastio Petalata Splash, I believe. Those new leaves are in my care. I have a Caudata back here also doing well, putting out this cute little leaf there. And then my favorite right now is this Carrii Splash. Oh my goodness. I really don't even like the Carrii plant, but when I saw this splash, I love a splashy Hoya, so it got me. And it is starting to root, so that is very good. And then you guys have seen these recently, these propagations for my plant wall, so I won't go over these too much, but they're all still doing pretty good. Going down a level is my beautiful, let me move back, Crystallinum. I had this for a while now, over a year now, and I had it as a one leaf. Was it a cutting? I think it was a rooted cutting. It was given to me as a gift from a seller from Etsy, and I really appreciate it. It's going really well. I think it's working on another leaf right now. Let's see if we can find it. It's a bush. There it is. It's working on a leaf, so it's very happy. My Geneviviano also working on a leaf. Where is it? There it is. Working on a leaf, doing well. And then down in this little corner, I have a prop box here because there's some light coming from here, so I feel like that was a good spot to stick it. And in here is basically just my variegated mini million hearts that I'm trying to save, and chunks from some other plants that I do not recall at the moment. And then one step up over on this side is another anthurium, my Doc Block hybrid. What's it crossed with? Let me see. Crossed with a magnificum. I think I have 2 of those now. I think I have one that I grew from a skilling. This one I got in a trade, and I don't know if it's picking up. If it's not, you know, I'm gonna put a clip in, but the shimmeriness here is really pretty. So this leaf is the most recent leaf, and this was the first one in my care. A little wonky, but it's a nice size. And I don't think it's working on any new leaves right now, but it does have some good looking roots, so not worried. And enjoy. I used to be obsessed with this plant, and then I was obsessed with finding it, and then I got this one, and I wasn't really, you know, and like I don't know, it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be, or maybe it's just this one, but I do like how it's growing here, so it works for this space, so I'm gonna just let it rock. And so as you can see, these 2 shelves, they do not have a light directly under them, but once we come down to this shelf here, we have another set of lights, and again, it's just for some plants that can really take the light. Starting off with this bad boy still in the show, my Monstera Albo, doing very well. I actually repotted it recently, and it looks really good. I was worried, because you know, I'd be worried, but it got some new roots down in there, and it looks pretty good. Hoping that it will go into the pole pretty soon. I need to actually, oh, it did. It's going into the pole. Hold on, focus, get it together. There we go. It's gonna go, oh my gosh, did I snap it? Okay, let me stop touching it. It's rooting into the pole, that's all we need to know. And I have a begonia maculata, I believe, there towards the back. Here, I wanna say this is a Plowmania. I'm gonna ask y'all because I think this is a Plowmania, or maybe it's a Mame Silver, because I'm gonna show you the Mame Silver that I have, and this looks very kind of sort of similar. So I think it is a Mame Silver. But yeah, this thing, let's call this a Mame Silver. I grew this from a chunk also. Oh my goodness, very cute. And then my Gigantium, which I love. I imported this last year, and it has been a very long and rough import recovery acclimation process, but we made it here, and it was definitely worth it because I love this plant. Behind that, I have another little rehab, which is looking really good. My Syngonium, maybe white butterfly, pink butterfly, something like that, not sure. And then there are these kind of hard to ignore leaves from my Serpens. It doesn't look like it's doing that well, but it's okay. It just doesn't look good, but it's okay. Growth point there. I don't see a lot of roots, that's for sure. I do see activated growth points, but yeah, I probably should take a closer look at that because it's not looking so hot. It's just not like dying, so that's why I don't bother it. I just kind of let it work itself out. And then this is the one I'm talking about that looks like the other one. So before, I thought that this was a Plowmanii, but then I got this Mame Silver, and I'm like, I think that's a Mame Silver, not a Plowmanii. So this is definitely a Mame Silver. I got this from Equigenera. This is the same one that I got one for you guys for the giveaway. So I definitely know this is a Mame. But yeah, this is gonna need a repot too. It's crawling out of the pot. And our last and final shelf, we have this Syngonium macrophyllum. I'm not gonna lie, these plants down here are a little forgotten. They are a little forgotten, and it's not on purpose. It's not that I don't like them. Like when I do get a good look at this plant, I do really like it. It is very similar to the chia pens, and the texture of the leaf and the way it looks is just more narrow. If you don't like rounder leaves, you might like the macrophylla. but I really love my chia pens, so I guess that's why it doesn't get as much love from me. And then these are my propagations that are long overdue and really need to be potted. As you can see, all those roots in there. I'm afraid to pot it up because I've almost killed this plant twice. So I think there was a brandyatum in here, I thought. It's probably gone, but it's now just a bunch of epi cuttings. And then just to kind of take up some space, I could have put a plant there, but I didn't have anything small enough that needed low light or would prefer low light to put there. Not prefer, because plants don't really prefer low light, but plants that would do okay in low light, I didn't have one to put there. So this is a good way to just fill space without it being cluttered. If you have, if you don't have a plant you want to put there, I think previously I had it up over here because I didn't have a plant over here. So I just put this on the shelf and it just kind of moved lower and lower once I got more and more plants. So that is also another option, to put a kind of knick-knacky type item, or maybe even a photo, a family photo on your shelf. So that is what my plant shelf is looking like today as of mid-January. I'm sure by the spring it will completely change. And if you like these type of plant tour videos, check out my full houseplant tour here.